Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking with the team again. We have Danny, Jessee, we have Will, we have Jorge, and myself, Stuart. So today we're just going to be focusing on AWS certifications and the different ones that are coming up, and some of the new learning paths that we've recently launched here at Cloud Academy, covering certifications. So we're going to be talking about firstly the Cloud Practitioner learning path that's just been updated. We're going to be talking about the SAP specialty, the new networking specialty that's coming out in July, I believe, and then also the newly announced Solutions Architect Associate, which is coming out at the end of August. So, Danny, do you want to kick off and just kind of highlight some of the changes that have been made with the new Cloud Practitioner certification? Because obviously we had that certification learning path on Cloud Academy for a long time. But you've recently revamped it and updated it. So if you can kind of give us an update as to what was changed there.
Absolutely, Stu. So as you mentioned, we did release our refreshed learning path for the Cloud Practitioner certification earlier this week. As part of that process, we've gone through and mapped all of the content from the exam blueprint to a series of courses, which we have basically consolidated into some core service offerings that help to streamline the way that we present the material, mapping into the domains from the exam. We've added some hands-on labs, and as always, there's a preparation exam at the end to make sure that you are good and ready when you're ready to sit that exam.
Nice. So it sounds like you've kind of refined some of the existing courses down to really focus on the assessment points of the exam guide itself, just to make it a bit more focused and a bit more kind of directed into all the elements that we need to know. Is that kind of correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. And where there were areas where we needed to add some offerings, as some service offerings from AWS have changed and evolved over the last few months, we've done that as well.
Excellent. And I think you've added some additional content around the billing and cost management, because we've had some new content in that area recently. So I think that's domain 4. Is it domain 4, the Cloud Practitioner? Yes. So yeah, it's great to see additional content around that side of things, because I know that's focused on a fair amount in the exam. The last time I took it anyway, there were certainly offerings around that. So that sounds great. How long is it? Is it about 16, 17 hours or something like that?
The total amount of content actually comes out to about 19 hours. There are some hands-on labs, so your experience may dictate shorter or longer based on the time you spend interacting with those. But yeah, we came in right around that 18, 19-hour mark.
Nice. And the labs really help to solidify that knowledge learned in the lectures. That kind of hands-on experience is, although not, you don't get many, there's no lab questions in the Cloud Practitioner, but just having that hands-on experience by doing the labs really helps to reinforce your learning. Would you tend to agree on that, guys, either Will or Jorge, like the kind of effectiveness of the labs for these exams?
Oh, absolutely. They cement home the anatomy as well as the moving parts for a particular service. And in the case of Cloud Practitioner, that is exactly what the exam tests. It tests that you're able to ID a service, what the service does for you, and under what circumstances do you use it. So you'll be presented with a situational and asked which service will be the most appropriate service to solve that. And one of the items that Danny has been working on is the fact that now this version of the exam actually covers a significant more service, including the code developer tools. Understanding that functionality is relatively new. And as you mentioned, Stu, this particular exam it stands unique in that it tests for AWS support tier knowledge. So understanding the business tier as well as the enterprise tier of support, what do they bring to the table? This exam stands unique that it verifies for you to have clarity on that knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. It's it's that foundational exam, isn't it, to kind of get your entrance into the world of AWS, like understanding the terminology, just the kind of the core services and what they do. It doesn't dive into the deep technical elements, but it gives you that really kind of good baseline foundation of AWS before working onto the associates and then professionals, specialties, and all the other ones that are out there. Which kind of leads us nicely on to the next certification, which is the SAP specialty, which is coming out towards the end of April, I believe. And we're all kind of busy as a team working on new content for that exam coming out next month. Can you give us some kind of overview and highlights on how that learning path is kind of going to pan out for us, Danny?
Sure. So as you mentioned, and since our last episode, AWS actually did announce formal dates for the release. You can begin to register for the exam on April 7th, and the first day to take the exam will be April 26th. So as we're crafting this learning path, there's a lot of mapping between just traditional solutions architect knowledge, just knowing basically, again, those core services of AWS, as well as the process for assessing on-premises infrastructure and identifying AWS services in a migration context. So there are SAP-specific components to the exam. Obviously, you're going to need to know about HANA. You're going to need to know about the various database offerings, the operating systems and the databases that are supported by SAP, as well as what they call, homogeneous and heterogeneous migrations. So things of that nature. With your SAP background, also having that AWS foundational solutions architect knowledge, kind of marrying those two together into this SAP on AWS specialty.
So do you think it'd be advantageous to people to have perhaps one of the associate level certifications before attempting this? Because it sounds like it's based on a lot of that kind of architectural design and principles and methodologies that AWS uses in its design, etc. So do you think it would be preferable for people to take maybe one of those certifications before this specialty?
Very much so, yes. So while AWS does not formally require you to have any prerequisite certifications to take any of these exams, including these specialty exams, I think, again, the Solutions Architect Associate would be a great first level, particularly if you haven't taken any AWS certification exams before. There's going to be a tremendous amount of overlap in the material that's covered on that exam, as well as the specialty exam. So studying for that, you're going to get most of the way to that associate anyway. And I think that would be a great kind of transition point from that associate to that specialty level.
Yeah, because there might be people out there that are kind of familiar with SAP and they might have done maybe their cloud practitioner and may have put two and two together thinking, I know SAP, I know a bit about AWS, let me do the specialty now, but perhaps not the best course of action. Maybe take one of the associate levels first. Does it kind of focus on having a deep understanding of SAP and SAP applications itself, or is it more to do with the integration and how that integration works with AWS?
So there's a focus on the integration with AWS. And again, particularly when you're talking about migration scenarios and upgrade scenarios, things of that nature. So there may be some questions in terms of just foundational SAP knowledge, but this specialty cert is going to be geared towards the implementation of SAP workloads on the AWS.
Nice. Have any of you guys worked with SAP before? Have you used it at all, Will or Jorge?
No, I haven't.
I have been aware of SAP for a while in a prior experience in that particular space. And I am aware the SAP ecosystem is about as complex as AWS ecosystem. It's an enterprise compute platform with over 5,000 customers. And it's been around for a while. And like most things AWS, it's customer driven. So migrating SAP workloads to AWS is a lot of times is going to entail to have a specific AMI with the SAP soft to install. And then you're basically capitalizing on the elasticity of the cloud to implement these very same workloads that you've been implementing perhaps for the past decade in some cases.
Sure. Yeah, I'm certainly learning a lot about SAP at the minute in the research and writing of new courses. So that's all good. Hopefully I can get to take and sit the exam and pass it with our learning path afterwards, which would be great. So is anything else to mention on SAP specialty from anyone? All excited about taking the exam?
April 7th, first day to register.
Nice. I'll get straight on it. Okay, next up we have the networking specialty that's coming out. Obviously, we already have the networking specialty learning path with Cloud Academy already, but with the new exam coming out, it's going to have new assessment points, new areas to focus on, new topics and categories and services, no doubt. So we've taken a look at that exam guide already and already kind of begin working on new content. How do you think it compares to from the existing to the new one, Danny? Because I know you've got kind of both exams booked quite close to each other to do a comparison. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So I am planning to sit the current version of the exam tomorrow, and then the following Monday, I'll be taking the beta exam of the updated release. So obviously, we've been reviewing the blueprints for both exams, and I have identified mostly things around new service offerings. So, expect to see questions about gateway load balancers, VPC reachability analyzer, things of that nature on the new exam. But I do intend to blog about my experience taking these two exams over the course of a week, and we'll certainly share any study tips or any other things to highlight in terms of structure of the exam or how you may want to change your study plan based on what's covered in that new exam.
Yeah, that's good to know. It'll be good. It'll be interesting to see that comparison, especially as you're taking them so close. So I look forward to reading that blog and seeing the kind of generalized differences between them. I mean, in preparation for the new learning path, we've already got a number of new courses underway with production to do with networking. So we've got new courses coming out on using network firewalls to secure your VPCs, CloudFront design patterns, AWS routing, VPC sharing with a resource access manager, looking at private application connectivity with Private Link, understanding Direct Connect, what it is, how to implement it, its configuration. I know that's generally covered quite a lot on the networking specialty, so we're expanding all of that area as well. Looking at network security and encryption, interregional and intra-regional communication patterns, and also IPv6 stuff as well. So that's some of the content that we're working on at the moment to add to the new networking specialty. But as we go through the exam guide and following some of Danny's feedback after the beta exam next week, we shall be building a lot more content around that as well. So lots to learn, lots of courses to write. I know you've kind of got some good experience with kind of networking and infrastructure in general, Will. How do you feel these differences are going to kind of compare to the networking specialty that was first set out 2 or 3 years ago? Do you think there's going to be a considerable amount of some of the new networking services in there that's going to be dived into?
Probably. Before, I think what I would say, it was about the basics, the fundamentals, and sort of the advanced of networking and how it works on the AWS infrastructure. I wouldn't be surprised to see some more things like transit gateway making an appearance, though briefly, maybe like 3% of the questions. So not a whole lot, but some. You'd have to know about it. There's been a lot of new adaptation to the AWS network since the original specialty came out. So I'm excited to see what they switched it up with. It'll be an interesting view into what they think is important for networking, to see the difference between the two.
Yeah, definitely. And I know the past few months you've created some great networking courses. You've done some good tablet talks on AWS networking. I think you even done one on the transit gateway, if my memory serves me correctly. So yeah, all of that content is definitely going to help with this specialty. Are you going to be taking it, Jorge? Or have you already?
I am.
Got it already?
I plan to take it, once it's released. And it will be the first time I sit the exam. So I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. We'll make sure all the team has it by the end of the year. Yeah, a little target for the team.
No pressure, no pressure.
No pressure at all. No pressure. And finally, we have kind of the big one, which is the AWS Solutions Architect Associate, which is arguably the most sought after AWS cert, has been for a number of years. C03 is coming out at the end of August. So obviously we updated our learning path when C02 come out, and we built a new learning path to focus on all the assessment points and domain points of that exam. And we'll be doing exactly the same with C03. So we'll have that built and ready before that's made generally available. So you guys can prepare and sit that exam for when it comes out. We'll certainly have all of the content for that ready and available and built into the learning path. There'll be new content in there. There'll be some new labs in there, and there'll be a new exam as well. So I'm looking forward to to sit in that one again to see the difference from the current version and the new. What do you think some of the biggest changes will be?
So I know in reviewing the exam blueprints for C02 and C03, and I think Jorge actually did the math on this, but from C02 to C03, they went from covering 63 services across 10 categories in C02. That number grew to 131 services across 16 categories for C03. So definitely expect the amount of content in our learning path to grow to meet that as well. A lot of new services, going from 63 to 131. Obviously, there are many new offerings that are going to be kind of in play for what could be asked on the exam. Some new domains that weren't there before include all of the machine learning services. So things like comprehend and recognition, as well as just expanded the number of database services and even some of the developer tooling and services that are covered as well.
I would imagine a lot of these kind of newer services, especially kind of the ML side of things, you're not going to be required to have a deep understanding and knowledge of those areas, probably more of an awareness of what they are and what they do, as opposed to how to kind of configure and implement them. Would you guys agree with that? Because
it's an interesting take. To me, I don't think of the ML stuff as particularly important for architecture of systems and design. That's sort of an additional thing you'd put on top of your architecture. So I think the original architecting cert, and then the second one that they came out with, was already very beefy with content you had to know. So I'm a little nervous, but interested to see how they've expanded it.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see some of the questions that come up in the beta, to see if they do kind of pull in these more kind of outside services from the traditional architecture exams that happen, because like Danny said, there's already a lot of content in these learning paths already for the Solutions Architect Associate, because it does cover a broad set of services. I know AWS have brought out a ton of new services and have done kind of almost every month. So you do need to become aware of those. But I think being aware of those at a real deep level across all of them is quite a big ask, especially at this associate level. And if you're talking professional level, then yeah, you need to know more in depth, more how it integrates with other services and the do's and don'ts and the whys and hows, etc. So yeah, I'm looking forward to taking the beta to see how these other services are involved. I mean, on the exam blueprint, it mentions all these services, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be covered, and it doesn't explain it at what depth either. So I think we need to use our own kind of knowledge, our own experience over the years of sitting this exam multiple times, and kind of creating the content based on our own experience of sitting the beta, our own experience of previous sittings of the exam, and build it accordingly. Because we don't want to overload people with way too much information at the depth that just isn't required, but enough information to understand detractors in questions and distractors, etc. I think that's probably my take on it at this stage. That might change over time. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts?
I will go with a similar interpretation as Danny, in that, at least from the exam guide, what I interpret is that if we go by the number of service and features covered alone, we can say that the amount of material has doubled. I mean, in terms of service coverage, the number of services has doubled. And as you clearly explained, the depth of knowledge for those additional services may just be at the level of recognizing what do they do for you, perhaps how do they integrate with other services that tend to work with them on a average use case, but still represents as investment, a little bit of an additional investment in terms of time for you to be able to get your head around this new material that is fair game now for the exam.
Sounds good. Well, I look forward to it. Look forward to working with all you guys to building out the new learning path. We've certainly got our work cut out for us over the next few months, just on certifications alone. That's not forgetting all the other content that we're building that sits outside of the certification world, because let's be honest, it's not just about AWS certs when learning about AWS certs, when learning about AWS. Has anyone got anything else to add on the certifications that we spoke about today? Any other comments?
So the first day to register for C03, if you're just itching to be one of the first ones to take this exam and get that new certification, is July 26th. But C02 will be available to take through August 29th. C03 will replace that on August 30th.
Cool. Okay.
Nice.
We better get busy then. Excellent. Well, it's been great speaking with you guys again. It was interesting to hear the latest things on the AWS certs that are coming up, and also to hear about the latest update to the Cloud Practitioner that we made. So feel free to take a look, give us your feedback on the new Cloud Practitioner that Danny released, and look forward to speaking to you all again next time. Cheers, guys.